Coming up, bets on for a US recession, the gold price nears a record, and the latest market views. That's coming up. Hi, everyone. It's a bit of a shorter SBS On The Money podcast today for this Friday, the 14th of April, 2023. The Australian share market did rise today, up 0.5% on the S&P ASX 200, ending a pretty solid week for the past few trading sessions. I'm trying to think back if it was Easter or not. We saw the share market rise 1.9% for the week. So for her take on the state of play on the market, I spoke with Julia Lee from State Street SPDR ETF. Julia, how would you describe the investment environment at the moment?
The biggest thing that shifted, Ricardo, for the investment environment is that the market has gone from pricing in rate hikes to rate cuts. Now, interest rates impact on all asset prices, and that's had a big impact in terms of performance. We have a look at sectors that are interest rate sensitive, areas like the consumer discretionary area and information technology. Both of these sectors have benefited. We've seen consumer discretionary up by 13% in the year to date and tech up by 12%.
I guess if we're talking about rate cuts, do we mean rate cuts later on in the year or potentially next year? Because we saw those US inflation numbers out yesterday, 5% annually. It's still way above the 2% target from the US Federal Reserve. So doesn't that warrant a rate rise there still?
It's a good question, and the question is regarding the next few months versus the rest of the year. If we have a look at where the market is pricing in those rate cuts, it's in the second half of the year. But the debate at the moment is how many rate hikes are we going to see until the end of the cycle, and we're debating one or two, not many rate hikes as we've seen in the past 12 months. The inflation numbers in the US also prove that inflation is continually coming down. Those inflation numbers were on expectations, and we have seen inflation falling quite rapidly, even though it remains quite high.
What about locally? All the talk is whether or not the Reserve Bank will actually now lift its finger from the pause button next month. What do you think?
Well, we have seen a pause by the Reserve Bank of Australia in terms of interest rates, but the latest job numbers show that they may need to do more to cool the economy and fight inflation. And that's because jobs are still strong. We're seeing the unemployment rate here in Australia at near 5-decade lows at 3.5%. The big set of numbers to be watching is next week on the 26th of April when we see the quarterly inflation numbers, and that's going to play a big part in the RBA's decision next month.
One key move we've seen in the markets over the past couple of weeks is this increase in the gold price. At the moment, it's flirting with those record highs. Can you run us through the gold's purpose? Why is it at such levels and the opportunities there?
Gold is shining in its role as insurance against market volatility, and it's not surprising given that the market really has priced in around about a 65% chance of a recession in the US. So really, if we have a look at the appeal for gold, it is to protect against market shocks. And of course, we have seen gold doing very well for investors this year, the trend very much up, and we have seen volatility playing into that, as well as expectations around US recession and more uncertainty.
Final question. The ACCC has proposed new merger laws, basically wanting to get more power to be notified of all mergers above a specific threshold. Could this in any way have any market implications?
The market prices in the probability of a takeover, and that's why when you see a takeover offer, quite often the stock doesn't trade at that takeover offer, but at a discount. The greater the probability that there's going to be hurdles on the ACCC, the competition watchdog front, or the Foreign Investment Review Board front, the bigger the discount. So depending on what the regulations are going to be, if those hurdles do become steeper, the market will price in that greater hurdle and the greater probability that there may be some hurdles to the takeover.
Julia Lee there from State Street. Next week, a key focus will be on the quarterly inflation data from the Bureau of Statistics. It will determine whether or not the Reserve Bank here does lift interest rates in May. This SBS On The Money stream is provided for informational purposes only. The content in this stream should not be understood as constituting advice or a recommendation. It is not personal advice and it does not consider your personal circumstances or objectives. You should contact a licensed professional before making